You might be asking yourselves, how did this lady get so invested in this? What brought her to dedicate her life to figuring out the answers to these questions? I mean, I'm sure you are all asking yourselves the same questions and you've had similar experiences, but why is change so hard? And why do so many people stay stuck? I had to figure out the answers because I got sick as a young mother. If you want to read about it, you're welcome to. This and other books are on Amazon. I wanted to document it because I was dying and I was afraid that I wouldn't get to actually talk to my children and tell them about the things that had happened, and I wanted to leave something for them. It ends up that I did survive, but I had to figure out the answers to these questions because no healing, physical, emotional, or spiritual, happens outside of a regulated nervous system. Also, orientation. When people are in high anxiety, they're not able to actually do any healing work because they're stuck in an old narrative, as we've talked about. So, processing, how does that happen? How do you start to discharge? How do you start to get rid of these layers of trauma and anxiety that back up in the amygdala and don't allow us to live a full life, may actually cause emotional disease, physical disease, all kinds of issues. So, when I got sick, I had to double down and take risks that maybe other people wouldn't take. I left my comfortable government job. I left my fancy car and my nice home to take a trek out west. My grandmother is Native American, and so when I was confronted with imminent death and had two small children, I actually took the risk that most people wouldn't take, not only because of worrying about losing your license, but the wild discomfort of stepping into the vast wilderness of shamanism, mysticism, all of these different traditions, kung fu, yoga. I lived in an ashram. I worked in farming and permaculture. I studied holistic health. I studied herbalism with Susan Weed. I studied these things, sweat lodge, you wouldn't believe, epic things. And I'm happy to talk about it later, but this isn't really about me as much as it's about the desperation level that some people get to. By the way, that's the second qualifier, aside from people who are willing to do their work, is people who are like really desperate, are willing to do almost anything to heal if they really want to stay alive. And I'm sure that you've noticed that people get inspired under certain circumstances to really up the ante, so to speak. So, when I went out west, I learned about how things are processed in traditional culture. And in Native American traditions, the ones I studied in the Southwest, the medicine people are especially careful about what I call titrating. So unlike the therapeutic model that we're taught, where we sort of poke the bear and we're trying to excavate things so that we can excavate everything, the dead bodies, and then everything's going to be fine. It actually doesn't work like that. Sometimes poking the bear makes these ruts deeper and makes the engine RPMs go up, especially if you're dealing with a dysregulated nervous system and someone who's not properly orientated to a safe space in the present. So, in reality, trauma therapy research shows that titrated exposure combined with physiological stabilization is less overwhelming and tends to stick better. That is the third key, processing. Now, I'm going to show you a quick trick because I noticed in my journeys and in 25 years of running holistic health retreats and coaching every different type of client. I mean, I've had MMA, I have attorneys, I have judges, I have neurosurgeons, I have all kinds of different leaders and coaches. It's amazing the people that I've had the privilege to work with, and a lot of high level, high ranking veterans who had heavy PTSD but didn't really want to talk about it for fear of being drugged or perhaps shunned for not being able to handle their trauma. So, all different types of clients, and I figured something out that's really cool. The nervous system is nonlinear. The nervous system is a fractal electromagnetic field. I'm trying not to sound hippy dippy, okay? But there are certain things that are difficult to convey. But our brainwave patterns actually make a sort of resonant field, as has been proved and evidenced by this research over 30 years. Your brainwaves create a charge. Your heart is a generator of such magnitude as to be 100 to 500 times stronger than your brainwaves. So, if you can drop into your heart and you can open that, then you can access this whole field of intelligence and you can start to process and identify and make connections between things. But because these fields, these neural networks, are nonlinear, it's not 2 plus 2 equals 4, like a brick wall. It doesn't work that way, okay? It works like a web. So we do bubble diagramming. This is an amazing hack that you can start using on Monday morning or Friday morning tomorrow, right? You can do bubble diagramming with people and it helps them to titrate or expel the charge of something once they see it on paper. So we start in the center with something. In this case, we started with the word trigger. And then we go need to please, right? There's a group of female clients, very, very powerful corporate leadership who are still doing the things we were programmed to do, need to please, all right? Then we talk about our self-image. We talk about self-confidence. And we bubble out in multiple directions off of this, and we start to see patterns. We start to see hot spots. When we get dense and we start to do a lot of processing around something, then we start to see patterns and connections. Now, all these things all over the place can connect to each other, and there's no wrong answer. This is how our nervous systems work. All of these little neural networks are interconnected. So if you have a memory of something red that's traumatic, when you're seeing the color red, you're tapping into that trauma, lightly or heavily. I'm just saying it is all interconnected in a web, and it moves almost as fast as the speed of light. It moves through the fascia and it moves through electromagnetic fields. It is nonlinear, not necessarily local. And when you find the force and you tap into this higher consciousness and the fourth key, you are able to actually shift this. The pattern recognition is what's really important. That is what helps people to process. So after things come up during a session, send them home to do this. And then they flip the page over and they pull out a couple of these patterns and they start riffing off on that. I have clients who go through a whole notebook. It's like a kind of like a purge bucket for their emotions that they can get out. And then when they see the patterns, it's no longer lodged in their amygdala. Their neocortex can start to make sense of these things. And we're going to bring to the frontal lobe, or the guru on the top of the mountain. That part was where we get past the sheep, we get past the sentinel, and we're into the dreamer. And we're starting to allow ourselves to really journey and to explore our feelings non-judgmentally in a safe space, but also not dumping the load onto another person, doing your own spiritual push-ups. It requires nutrition, it requires breath work, it requires yoga or some type of stretching, long walks, exposure to nature and sunlight. All right. That is a list of things you can give to your clients tomorrow to tell them if you want to get better, you have to do your own push-ups. All right. This is Dr. Courtney, and we have one more video, maybe two, because in the end, I'm going to make you an offer. I'm going to make an invitation to our therapist lab, where we'll be doing podcasting, we'll be doing training and groups and everything online. And we'll be doing a wonderful retreat in New Mexico. I can't wait to share New Mexico with you. I trained there for 20 years. I know it like the back of my hand. And we're going to be taking a small group of people to the south of New Mexico so they can learn to self-regulate and take those tools to their clients. All right. See you soon.